If you've ever listened to the Red Hot Chili Peppers or have been interested in playing guitar, then chances are you've stumbled across the name John Frusciante. He's been praised for his guitar work in the funk rock band, and he pops up frequently on best guitarist lists. However, his work goes beyond the Chili Peppers and guitar solos, and what better way to delve into it than with his first solo album. This is Niandra, LaDes, and Usually Just a T-Shirt. The album was released in 1994 and, for quick context, Frusciante quit the Chili Peppers for the first time in 1992. He became a recluse for a while, focused a lot on painting, and his drug addiction almost killed him during the 90s. Before Frusciante quit the band, while the Chili Peppers were writing and recording Blood Sugar Sex Magik, Frusciante was also recording songs that would eventually turn up on Niandra, LaDes and Usually Just a T-Shirt. The recording of it is very minimalistic. Frusciante used a Tascam 424, which is a portable mixer that records onto cassette tape. He didn't use any amps for the guitar sound, opting instead to plug the guitars directly into the Tascam. This, in turn, makes the sound of the guitar very dry, but surprisingly rich and warm, which is probably aided by the fact that it's recorded to tape, which can be forgiving and helpful in terms of sound. If this album would have been recorded digitally, it would have sounded wildly different. In my opinion, this is the defining sound of Niandra, LaDes: dry guitars and reversed solos. He sort of used this sound later on in his solo career, for example on the song Here Air, a bonus track from the Empyrean era in 2009. But this, in 1994, is where it's most defining. In a 2020 interview, Frusciante mentioned that basically he was at a point where he wanted to make weird music for the sake of weird, trying to make bad songs, rather than stuff that he thought might appeal to other people. The part of weird for the sake of weird does seem a bit funny to me. Maybe he's not referring to the songs that ended up on the album, because in the end the music on the album comes across as sincere. It doesn't sound like he wants to be wacky and wild just so he can say that he's done it. In the same interview, he said, quote, "Trying to do what really came naturally when I didn't put any effort into it at all to try to make something good." And I find naturally to be the key word, because the songs don't seem forced. He's not trying to shape them into something they're not. They are a sincere weird, rather than a trying to be cool kind of weird. In the same interview, he pointed out the Velvet Underground and Syd Barrett as influences, and the album does have some folk and blues elements mixed in with the experimentation. Granted, experimental is a very broad term, and it doesn't actually say much. In this case, basically, the music is not trying to be catchy, it's not trying to follow a formula, it's not trying to impress. Imagine someone with a guitar and a sheet of paper just improvising stuff. Except they're quite good at it. As the title suggests, the album is comprised of two sides, the first one being Niandra, LaDes, which has slightly more, let's say, conventional songs, as conventional as this album can be. Most of the songs don't have the usual pop formula of verse, chorus, but the songs are somewhat streamlined. They're straight to the point, and while I wouldn't call them radio friendly, this side is definitely easier to dig into. The second side, Usually Just a T-Shirt, is compiled of songs which, according to Frusciante, have been recorded in the order that they appear. All of the songs on the second side are untitled, and the majority of them are instrumentals, and while the sound stays the same as the first side, this one is even more adventurous. If weird lo-fi psychedelic avant-garde music is not really your cup of tea, I would not recommend this album. Also, if you're a Chili Peppers fan and expect something in that style, I would also not recommend this album. Ultimately, most of Niandra, LaDes and Usually Just a T-Shirt is not extremely accessible. It's definitely an acquired taste. It's an album that requires a bit of time, and one that might grow on you if you give it a fair shot. Some of the highlights for this album are Been Insane, My Smile is a Rifle, And the standout track is Big Takeover, a cover of the song by Bad Brains. While the original is a hardcore punk song, fast-paced, loud and aggressive, Frusciante's cover gives it a slow Middle Eastern sound. The lyrics are a complicated topic to discuss when talking about this album, and when talking about Frusciante's music in general. Much like the music on this album, the lyrics are also not accessible. However, if you're a fan of cryptic verses, then you're in luck. Most of the lyrics seem to be stream of consciousness, jumping from thought to thought, dropping in a line that might hit you over the head, but then quickly changing gears before you figure out what he's trying to say. What do I mean by that? For example, in the song Mascara there is a verse that goes, "It's been so long since we bloomed from the inside, so where have you been since you fell off the flat edge of the world under an ugly sky? You've been lying right there claiming you dance under the moonlight." While difficult to decipher, and you might have your own interpretation of it, I think it could be interpreted as the narrator asking where this person has been since they fell off the face of the earth, and now they find themselves lying under an ugly sky, while still pretending that they dance under the moonlight, i.e. falling on hard times but being delusional about it. Maybe. Except in the very next part, to what you think is a song but is the flesh and blood of a dismembered groin that's been bleeding for thousands of your years. So the person is dancing under the moonlight to a song that is actually flesh and blood. The song being the life force that keeps us all going, but it's been hurting this whole time? I have no idea. But this is exactly what I mean. Most songs have parts where you can almost grasp what he's trying to say, but then in the next breath you're once again lost. So while the lyrics themselves might mean something to Frusciante, the listener is probably going to be lost for most of the time. However, that doesn't mean they're not interesting. It's difficult to dismiss some of the lyrics as just being nonsensical, because if you take a moment to look at them, then they can either spark an idea of what they might mean, or they might evoke some imagery, they might make you chuckle. Imagine, if you will, you're having a conversation with a person and you're telling them about your hardships, then they turn around and say to you, "Don't you want sunshine instead of phony lights?" Or they might say, "The world's just a sphere, no bigger." Maybe they won't say that. My point is, the album has a lot of one-liners that, while seemingly obtuse, they can be oddly thought-provoking. I find Niandra LaDes to be very inspirational in a weird way. I've discovered this album at a time when I was starting to dip my toes into songwriting. All the influences I had were classics and albums released through big labels. Basically, I was listening to things recorded in big studios and stuff that is polished and meticulously put together. Meanwhile, Niandra LaDes is none of those things. It has plenty of noise to it, the instrumentals are just guitars, the sound is dry, the singing can get wild. So for all intents and purposes, I shouldn't have liked this album. And yet, I found it to be very interesting. As silly as it might sound, this is the album that made me realize that you don't need fancy gear or a state-of-the-art studio. You just need good songs. It doesn't matter if you're recording on a big 64-track console or just your boombox. A good song will always shine through. And ultimately, Niandra LaDes does have those good songs. So, how's the album? I don't think most of the songs are something that you can just randomly put on at any time. They require a certain mood, they don't make for great background noise, which is a compliment. However, before I scare everyone of this album, it's not as weird as maybe I made it out to be. So if you've never listened to it, it's not going to be something like Revolution 9 by the Beatles. Niandra LaDes in Usually Just a T-shirt is surprisingly melodic. It has an atmosphere and a feel to it. It's at times very weird, but definitely intriguing. The production is simplistic but charming. The mood of it can get very dark, but still rather warm. And the best way I can ultimately describe it, it's interesting. Thank you so much for watching. The music that I've used in the background is stuff that I've recorded in an attempt to make it sound vaguely like Niandra LaDes. I plan on reviewing all of Frusciante's albums, probably up to Enclosure, so if that sounds like something that you might enjoy, then stick around. And feel free to give me a light golf clap. Thank you.